welcome to the first day of the rest of your life. My name is Joyce Jukes, and this is the Breakfast Show on TSL Nigeria TV. And welcome. Today, Nigeria joins nations across the world as we celebrate the International Day for the end of the impunity for crimes against journalists. This day is celebrated worldwide on November 2nd. This day preaches the protection of journalists and, of course, freedom of the press. However, Nigerians are asking, does this nation truly protect her journalists? Today we are joined by broadcast journalist Adesuwa Osa-Uwagie as she gives us her thoughts on the issue. Good morning, ma.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I've watched you broadcast the news several times, and it's flawless each time. And I've always wondered, how did you get into media and how did you get to where you are today?
Media? How did I get into the media? It was not an accident.
Oh, okay.
It was something that I really, truly wanted to do. Okay, I actually wanted to be two things in life. Be a lawyer or broadcaster.
Oh.
But you see, I tried getting into school to read law, and for quite a number of years, I couldn't get admitted to read law. So I said, okay, let me go to broadcasting somewhere. And that was because my younger brother got into school before me. It was an aberration, honestly. And I felt like this guy just slapped me.
In the face.
Because all I wanted to be was a lawyer. But eventually I got into school, did my broadcasting thing, served. I think 5 years after service, I went back to do law.
Wow.
So this is me. I've been in the broadcast business for like 15 years, and I've been a lawyer for 10.
Wow.
This is the kind of life you read about in books. It's fantastic. So let's jump into the conversation of the day. Today, the world is celebrating, or actually marking, the end of impunity for crimes against journalists. And for those who don't know, the meaning impunity means getting away with the crime. There's no punishment. There's nothing that's done to you after you have done this crime.
Huge exception.
Huge exception. And it's really interesting because why do we see time and time again that journalists are being disrespected, journalists are being killed, threatened, blackmailed by people, and they get away with it? What is your take on this issue?
Well, it didn't start today. It's something that has been there. And surprisingly, people are not doing much about it. Even the journalists are not even doing much about it. Let's look at the man called Delegiwa. He was murdered. And then panel of inquiry was set up, investigation here and there. At the end of the day, the matter was swept under the carpet, so to speak. Nobody, I haven't heard or seen anybody go in for that crime. You know? And it's just like that. And then let's take it somewhere else. Let's look at the issue of this man, Jamal Khashoggi. That's his name here.
Yes.
You know, everybody came out. And at least we know where the matter rested. You know? But in Nigeria, are the journalists protected? The answer, should I say no? Should I say yes? If I say no, I don't know who's going to come after me. If I say yes, I don't know who's there looking out for this woman to deal with her. You know, so somehow the journalist is being gagged in this country, and the journalists are not doing anything about it. Even when you come out to do something about it, you're doing that with so much risk. You don't know who's going to come after you. You are scared. You want to say the truth, you can't. Because one government agency will come after you if the other does not come after you. So I don't think the journalists in this country are being protected.
It's really pathetic because for over 14 years now, from 2006 to 2019, about 1,002 journalists have been killed. We don't want to talk about those that have been brutalized for doing their job, so to say. So, are you saying nobody fights for them?
I am not saying nobody fights for them. All I'm saying is that let us fight for ourselves. If we do not see anybody come out to rescue us as journalists.
So who cries when a journalist dies?
The journalist should cry.
So they
Because
do
if anything is happening in the society, you find the journalists in the forefront. They're bringing this news to the people.
Yes.
They're telling the people what is happening. Yes. Let's look at the NSAS thing. Yeah. Journalists were everywhere, doing their bits, even when some deniers were coming from left, right, center. But the journalist was in the forefront, bringing to people good news, good information, adequate information, not misinformation. Now the journalist is going through all of this. Who's going to cry for us? For goodness sake, we have NGOs in this country.
Okay.
All right? And then some NGOs will say, okay, we are human rights fighters.
Yeah.
If you violate anybody's rights, we're there to fight. Where are these NGOs when the journalist is being killed, maimed, brutalized, threatened? Sometimes some journalists will run away from where they reside.
Yeah, very true.
Other times they just run away from the country because they are not safe. Somebody is threatening them. Where are those people? Now, where are the security agencies that we have in this country? How do we cry to them? Even if you cry to them, how are you sure you're going to get justice? Where is the judiciary? You know? And the judiciary is supposed to be the last hope of the common man.
Very true.
All right? But how do you get there? Either these matters are under investigation. If they are not under investigation, the matter is closed for lack of evidence. If the matter is not closed for lack of evidence, the matter will just fizzle away.
Interesting. Now, you know, I think, was it last year or last 2 years, Fresh FM was demolished by a governor. And it was so fantastic to see that something like that could happen. And then it took me back to when I initially started broadcasting. Now, when I started broadcasting, there was a tale at my station. It was about this woman, God bless her soul, Cleo. About one time she was broadcasting the news, which she didn't write. And she announced that, I think she announced that there was a closure on the Niger Bridge or something similar to that. And it was false news. And she was arrested for well over 2 months. And she was in jail for 2 months,
yes.
And up until the person that put her there decided that she had been punished enough. Where can journalists seek redress? Is it the NBC? Because when I heard that story, they all laughed like it was something funny, but it was too wild to me. And I kept thinking, where do we seek redress?
We have the NBC who is even fighting journalists. If you say something you're not, the embassy is a government parastatal, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
If you say something that you're not supposed to say, that is deemed that you're not supposed to say, even if that thing is the truth, even if that thing is glaring to the world, that look, this is it on paper, and then a journalist come out to report that thing, you know what will happen to that journalist, particularly if that issue is something that will be offensive to some persons in some certain quarters. Now I'm saying some persons in some certain quarters because I don't want to mention names.
Being careful. Very true.
I'm just trying to be careful.
Very true. Very
I'm
true.
a wife, I'm a mother, I've got kids. I need to be alive to take care of my kids. You know? You can't mention names. Now, if you mention some names, the embassy will come after you. Okay, well, of course, we know that some media stations are already in the
whole
net,
claim,
with the fine and everything.
Yeah.
I hope that fine will be reversed.
Yes, we're saying they decided to seek redress.
You can't run
Yes.
to the embassy, so to speak. Now we have NUJ.
Okay.
Won't the NUJ come up to say, let's fight for our own? Sometimes they do. But do they take it to logical conclusion is another question to be answered. And don't ask me to answer that.
But what I would ask you to answer, sir, is that is it possible to say damn all the consequences? During this NSAS protest, when the protest began, the NBC sent out a communique that stations should not embarrass the government. But some stations decided to embarrass the government, irrespective people like the ones that have been fined. So is it that the other stations don't have the balls? Or is it just not worth it?
Sometimes, it's a multidimensional answer that you get. You know, like, on the one hand, it might just not be something you want to go into because no investor would want his station closed. No investor will want his station sanctioned. We know that there's no money anywhere. We're all struggling. Adverts don't come in as they used to. Even when they come, you don't get that kind of money that you want. So no investor will want to go through that stress. So it's like, come, let me warn you people. Listen to what NBC is saying and don't go contrary to. But others will say, without consequences, let us bring the news as it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let us say the truth and let's say what the world will say.
Yes.
when sanctions will come. And so those people, I must say, they're doing well. You know, that boldness is something that is what emulation. We should emulate it, but do you have that? Like they will say, you get the heart.
You not get the mind.
To do it, you know?
Actually, you were going
So
to say
listen.
something.
Yes, because we need a free press.
We
And so that the
do.
society will be free, you know. So what can be done about it? Because it's really disturbing.
A lot can be done. If we want, okay, we have freedom of speech,
Okay.
but the press is gagged. We have freedom of expression. The press cannot express some things because we are afraid of one sanction or the other. We're even afraid for our lives. So sometimes you find people not talking. Or other times we credit what was said to other foreign stations. That it was reported on BBC that this, it was reported on that. Because we don't, it's not because we don't want to say it, but we're scared for our lives. Life is sweet, oh. Very delicious. If you ask me, that is sweet.
But today is what journalist impunity did.
It is. But what can be done
Yes.
to checkmate all of this? Let's look at the NUJ. NUJ should be bold to take some steps in protecting its own.
Okay.
We should see NUJ everywhere. No matter where that journalist is working, no matter the state. Let us see, NUJ is one body, even if we have branches all over. If they can come as one strong voice and speak against all of it. A journalist is killed. A journalist is being maimed. A journalist is being brutalized. A journalist is being harassed. NUJ should come up to say that, look, this has to stop. And then, if we have to go to court, let the judiciary parley with us. Because without the journalists, even the judiciary will suffer.
Very true.
Because they need us. All right? They need us, whether they like it or not. Everybody needs the journalists. We are the salt of the earth, for goodness sake. We are the voice. Without the journalists, even the democracy we are trying to enjoy today will not be there. The journalist is everywhere. So I want to urge the NUJ to be up and doing. Let us see the NUJ in action. I like what it did when TVC was burnt. At least when there's a body to talk and plenty of grammar and all of that. We want to see it come to a conclusion that will make everybody smile, that will make everybody happy. That yes, we have people fighting for us. Okay, we should forget about, sometimes you hear stories like, some kind of monies, huge money like this have been dropped somewhere for one NUJ chair or one other person, all of that.
Okay.
And then with all of this, you find that there are some persons who are supposed to talk and not talking. You know why? Because they have leaked something sweet from somewhere. I didn't say bribe.
Brown envelopes.
Okay, so the brown envelope thing is an issue. If we must fight for ourselves, we should find a way of eradicating. If we cannot do that, at least minimize the taking and the giving of brown envelopes.
To minimize the taking, if journalists are well paid, I don't think
yes, that's another thing. If journalists are well remunerated, because truth be said, some journalists are not well remunerated. We are quite lucky where I'm from. At least give or take 8-9 days before the end of the month, you're getting your salary. You're happy. The COVID-19 thing did not disturb my station. All right, we got our packages in full. We heard that some persons were not paid, but not where I'm from. Okay, it's like a family. It's a big house. Okay, but if journalists are well remunerated, I believe that every journalist should ride a car. Every journalist should live in a good house. Every journalist should be able to send his or her child to a choice school. Every journalist should be able to access, everything good in life. But when there is a shortfall in these areas, the journalists will take brown envelope. Okay? But if they are well remunerated, I know media houses are making money. I sure do know that. So if journalists are well paid. A journalist can buy a car. A journalist can travel abroad, without assistance from anybody, from his or her salary. I think the brown envelope thing will be a thing of the past. And then we'll be able to report our news. We'll be able to talk about our news without fear. Even when threats are coming from left, side, center, you don't collect money from somebody and then you come up to talk ill about that person. Of course, you will go in for it.
Yes.
All right, so if we can do all of this, if the media works for itself, let's look at it now. A journalist is being dealt with the way we don't want. You're talking about it. Other stations are talking about it. We're coming out in full force to say, no, this cannot be accepted. We're putting this story on all of our news. It's coming on every time. Every station you turn to.
We're talking about it.
For goodness sake, who will dare the journalist again?
Solidarity is something we need in the industry. Yes, I'm close on this question, and I want you to answer this question with the deepest of sincerity. 15 years you've been in the media business. From when you started till now, would you say it was a worthwhile ride? If I was a young graduate saying I want to go into the media, because there's so much about the media that people don't talk about. There is the poor remunerations that you mentioned. There is unspoken sexual harassment, especially for women. And then there is a lack of protection by the industry. Would you say it's a worthwhile journey? Would you advise a younger you to take this step?
I would advise a younger me to take this step, I will. But if that younger me is going to be bold, if that younger me is going to be assertive, let your nay be nay and your yea be yea. If you're being sexually harassed in a station, be bold enough to say, I can do this. I don't want to do this. You understand? I'm not saying that. One or two or three persons have walked up to me and said, stop and there, don't let it go further. If you are what you say you are, if you're what you're onion, if you're what your weight in gold in the media industry, if you know what you're going to do there, you should be able to say, guy, I say no, even if you're the owner of this establishment, I don't want to do sex with you. Because if you do it once, you will continue to do it. It will be like a vicious circle. And the day you manage to say no, after you have done it and done it and done it, you lose your job. So why don't you just lose that job, go to another station and get a job somewhere? Every woman who wants to be a media practitioner should be assertive. You should be. Let your name be name. I want this job. Let what you have inside speak for you. It is only when you want to go there and manage. Let me just manage, this is the only place that I think I can find a job. Let me just manage myself. Of course, you'll be a sex tool.
Very true.
And that will be nobody's fault but your fault. So if from the onset you go there and you let them know who you are, what you are. Of course, we are women. And we know that some women cannot get anything without bottom power. Some women cannot, but there are women who will rub shoulders with men and say, let's get that together. So if you're that kind of a woman who is not assertive, the media is not a place for you. But if you so desire that this is your line of business alongside your media work, feel free to do what you want to do. Okay, so you can only get harassed when you want to be harassed. If you don't want to be harassed, fine. Okay, I had this boss then. Just go to him with this kind of message. Say, boss, this person, that person is disturbing. Say, don't worry, he will never talk to you again. I'm telling you, he will never talk to you, and he would take that matter. So if we have bosses like that, if we have people like that in establishments who will fight for a woman who is being sexually harassed, then everything will be good. But don't forget also that some women actually put themselves on a platter of gold.
We're not going to focus on those women. I believe that if we go into this conversation today, we're going to be here all day because the conversation about sexual harassment in the workplace, especially in the media, is a huge conversation. But there's one thing we can take home from this conversation is that you need to be worth your weight in gold, irrespective of the career that you find yourself. Thank you so much, Ma, for joining us today. It was fantastic having you. You know, I watched you on TV and I'm speaking to you in person, so it's fantastic.
I never thought that I'll be on the hot seat today. I've always been on the other side of the device. So today, I'm actually on the hot seat.
Fantastic. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us on the show today. Remember to like and follow us on all of our socials, TSN Nigeria TV, and to hit the subscribe button right below and join our YouTube family. My name is Joyce Chuk. Have yourself a splendid day.
Stay connected to TSL Nigeria and get updates on the go all day, every day. Subscribe to our YouTube channel on TSL Nigeria Space TV and join our online family.